Sorry, I ain't got no money. I'm not trying to be funny, but I left it all at home today. You can call me what you wanna. I ain't giving you $1 this time. I ain't gonna run away. You might knock me down, you might knock me down, but I will get back up again. You can call it how you wanna. I ain't giving you $1 this time. I ain't gonna run away.
Vigilantes, I am extremely happy to have Jack Liu back on the show to talk about the most exciting thing in my opinion, crypto history. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great. It's been 6 months, but it seems like yesterday, huh?
Yes. So what has happened in these past 6 months? You know, there was a lot of talk about 24 hours. What did you mean then and what do you mean now? What's going on?
Yeah, I think we recorded in early December, maybe a couple of weeks after FTX, and talk about the concept of hyperbitcoinization in 6 months to 48 months. I don't think any of us at that time predicted that Ordinals exactly would come out for BTC and by extension, other chains like BTC. But that came out in about January. We heard about this concept at our team by early February. And you know, in that span, a lot has happened. Almost like a replica of the entire of all innovations that's happened in crypto the last 10 years has now over the last 4 months hit BTC and really created like another layer of an economy beyond the physical world layer, the fiat layer, right? That's the first layer. The second layer being the crypto economy, but really speculating on the asset prices of things like BTC and Doge and Ethereum using fiat, using representatives of fiat like stablecoins. And now you have this like native crypto economy built on top of Bitcoin, built on top of ETH, on top of Doge, etc. And I think we're just at the beginning innings of that. In the last few months, you've seen like regulators both positively embrace crypto like in Hong Kong, but also start to set rules and standards on the second layer, on the crypto economy, with the SEC going after Coinbase, going after Binance, etc. And so while that's really good to establish like clarity for rules of the road for the actors who are building for the past decade, the crypto exchanges and such, it does reflect to me that that is the end of a chapter, the kind of uninhibited hyper growth chapter of crypto. Just like, you know, Wall Street had a crazy times in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And then by 2008, when the collapse of the financial system happened, you had the Dodd-Frank Act, you had reserve ratio requirements on banks, you had many more consolidation within the banking system. And yes, banks are still around, they still have profits, but I don't think the banking industry has ever relived in that ultimate peak of the 07 era or the 2000 .com era. So I think that while crypto is still very exciting and will still likely continue to grow the economy that we've known the last 10 years, I think that with the FTX collapse and the things that we've seen in the last 6 months, that's made it more challenging, I think, for centralized exchanges, at least in their centralized products, to grow uninhibited. And you might, as a market participant, think that's a positive, that brings transparency, that brings accountability. That's great. But society always manages to find another area to grow even faster. And I think that area is found with ordinals. And so based on what I see in the last 4 or 5 months, it's very clear to me that the physical world economy grows at a certain rate, whether it's 1 to 10% a year. If you're in a BRICS country, you might be growing 10%. If you're in a developed country, you might be growing 1, 2, 3%. I think the crypto economy grows at something like 100% a year, 50 to 100% a year. It used to grow a lot faster, but now it's kind of a little bit maturing, right? But the on-chain layer, I don't know how to even put a percentage on that. Like if we've seen assets on ordinals go up thousands and thousands of percent, like what took Ethereum 3 years to return 3000x, assets on ordinals took 3 months or 2 months to return 3000x. And I think that is the next frontier that will last like a decade at least, but some people call it like a final frontier. And we as humanity might need to embrace for this type of creativity, this type of rapid growth from here on out.
I also hear the term tossed around of the final economic layer. Let's speak a little bit more about this, because it seems as if it's more than technology. It's almost like an upgrade of people's minds. You were the first person that I heard 6 months ago understand and define hyperbitcoinization as not just a theory, but as a reality that you saw as an inevitability happening in real time. 6 months from then, now I can't get out of Twitter without finding at least one space within a 24-hour cycle happening at all times, at least one that's talking about hyperbitcoinization in the same way you spoke about hyperbitcoinization 6 months ago. What is going on?
I mean, in what respect are you curious about? What's going on?
What is it? It's more of a question on the level of psychology of the people, because it's like the technology has always been there, but it's almost as if something happened. There was a tipping point where now people are talking about this lived experience where hyperbitcoinization is no longer a concept, an idea that Daniel Krawietz spoke about in 2013, but it's now a reality that people like are now envisioning as a real possibility.
Yeah, I think there's a behavior change, like you said, psychology change, and whether you consciously can describe it or you're just subconsciously behaving like it. But if you look at the micro level, it doesn't really matter if you work at Ordinals Wallet or OrdSwap, which is a company that I built, or you work at Magic Eden, or you work at OKX or whatever. It is no longer as relevant what your CEO asks you to do, and more relevant what Bitcoin is signaling that you need to do. So the concept of a company has been broken. But the new concept of Bitcoin as the company has now really emerged, not as an abstract phrase. But what I mean by that is you're going to check the chain, you're going to check Twitter, you're going to check whatever sources you have for what's going on in Bitcoin. And that will dictate what you work on that week. So if Bitmap is invented by a person named Blocktoshi, you don't know this person, you can't do a background check on this person, you don't really have any semblance of understanding of what the plans are for this project. There's not a lot of details, okay? There's no term sheet, there's nothing. But you have, as a product, make a decision. And each one of us products, OrdSwap first, Ordinals Wallet second, Magic Eden third, and then a bunch of new entrepreneurs came in to build for something that none of us, to be quite frank with you, have really much of an idea exactly how this project will shape out. That leads to a lot of uncertainty for people, but the flip side of it is leads to a lot of opportunities for people. Now, how does that relate to like hyper-Bitcoinization, right? I think when this term was first hijacked by the BTC community from the person who coined the term, Daniel Krawietz. And again, in the benefit of hindsight, I don't think, if you watch my interview 6 months ago, you'll see places where, I don't think that he got everything correct. And I think if you look at Daniel Krawietz's paper from 10 years ago, it's not 100% correct, because you can't be like that accurate to exactly how things play out. But as we see it now, I can see that at first when people got excited about this term, they were excited about the concept of, they were excited about, okay, that means that Bitcoin outperforms all assets. Bitcoin goes to $1 million. Bitcoin goes to $10 million. But there was no answer to what happens after it does go to those numbers. Are you going to sell those Bitcoins? Are you going to there's like the meme like you won't have to, like from Morpheus, like yeah. But
Yeah.
the whole you won't have to sell it sounded to me, at least for the early Bitcoiners, as in like the coffee shop next door will just accept Bitcoin, and like
Right.
Nike store will accept Bitcoin. So you don't need to sell for fiat, but you're still going to be transacting with those Bitcoins in the very same fiat economy, just in parallel. So there'll be some guy who uses dollars and getting hyperinflated, and someone else uses BTC and is like benefiting from hyper Bitcoinization. But the set of goods and services that you were going to consume, at least to the mainstream understanding of this word, was still based in a physical world economy. What Ordinals boom coinciding with Apple Vision Pro announcement is this idea that an entirely alternative economy, a Bitcoin economy, is being created right now. Now, previously, this economy did exist in a loose sense, as in, what's the currency you're going to use to get into the ETH ICO? It's going to be Bitcoin. What's the currency you're going to use to get into the BNB ICO? It's going to be Bitcoin. What asset is the most liquid on exchanges that you can trade against Doge and different things? It's going to be Bitcoin. But that economy loosely existed around Bitcoin, but as a technology, it didn't exist on Bitcoin itself. None of those assets I mentioned actually live on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is seen as a reserve asset in the crypto economy, but it's a crypto economy that's disjointed from each other. I think the first like native economy that you start to see emerge was Ethereum, right? Where you can buy NFTs using ETH and such. But a lot of that stuff was being hosted on IPFS. It was hosted on AWS. There's still a lot of this part that's like off-chain and scalability issues and stuff like that. Now you don't have to separate Bitcoin and the other coins. You can have the entire economy benefiting from the same proof of work of Bitcoin. So the hyper-Bitcoinization now reflects, oh, I will now use my Bitcoin to engage in commerce with the assets on top of Bitcoin. Once that is clear, then you realize that like even if there will be a stable coin on top of Bitcoin as well, that stable coin is like a quote currency. It's not a base currency. So the US dollar coin in the respect of a Bitcoin economy is at best like a euro in the current world. So like it's the second best currency at best in the Bitcoin economy. The same way like the euro or the yen or the RMB is like the second best currency in this physical world economy. Whereas previously in the layer 2 kind of crypto world, where you're just simply buying the crypto for the price appreciation, you were still using, in many ways, dollars as a primary conduit to buy that.
That's awesome. So right now, this economy, this on-chain layer is moving extremely fast, and it pays to be nimble. It pays to be someone that has a fluid intelligence, so that you can move fast within this new space. Talk to me a little bit about your experience as an entrepreneur within this space, and the fact that, and from my experience, man, the more sophisticated the investor is, the easier they're gonna fade this. It's gonna be easier for them to fade this great opportunity that is emerging. And a lot of businesses I foresee in the same way to not be able to pivot in this direction. So maybe if you can speak to this, like what shakeups do you foresee happening in crypto as we see? And you mentioned the other day during a space, OKX is like the first exchange that's finally like opening up its doors to not just be an exchange of many digital assets, but also to be engaging the on-chain economy at the same time.
You mean like how will companies like miss this opportunity?
Yeah,
Or
how what do you foresee happening here? because I don't, like you've already pretty much stated, like it moves extremely fast, and it really displaces a lot of the market makers that we see throughout the internet.
Yeah, I think oftentimes when I talk about these concepts, people think like we're going back to an agricultural economy, or like back in time to live in nature and whatever. They think it's a step backwards, but I think it's actually like a giant step forward. So I think if you ask anyone, would you like to be a trillionaire just on your own, just off of your pure imagination? They would say yes. But then if you tell them, hey, you can't achieve that because the limits of the world, you have to form a company, and then you have to hire employees and get VCs. And then if you go IPO, then you might become a billionaire or trillionaire. They're like, okay, I'll take that trade-off, and I'll build a company. What hyper-Bitcoinization is doing is removing all the frictions of value creation, from, because all value comes from somebody's mind or a combination of people's mind. You have to have a vision, you have a concept. Even a piece of physical art or a statue or something like this, it's someone conceives of what they want to draw, and then they draw it, right? And like what ChatGPT already did to show you kind of a little bit glimpse of this is the meme of like in the 2000s, you want to learn how to code. In 2010, you want to learn how to code. In 2020, you want to learn how to code. In 2022, oh, sorry, you want to be an ideas guy. Because the whole concept of how to translate your idea into code can now potentially be solved by AI, right? So the concept of how to build a product or capture value, create something of value in the economy, used to manifest itself in the form of a company. And it tended to be that the bigger the company, the larger the scale, the better the products you can build, the more money you can make. What hyper-Bitcoinization is doing is saying that, oh no, that's not the case. If you have a very large company and they're not on the same page and they're not aligned incentive-wise, a company even as large as 20 people can seem extremely bureaucratic, extremely archaic compared to the whims of an individual person's mind. Now, when you say this to a lot of people, they'll say this is highly risky. Like there's no security here. There's no healthcare insurance. There's no full-time wage. It's highly risky. I would agree that it is highly risky. But if the friction is low enough to create value, then you could miss 100 times in a row. But if you make it one time out of 101, that one time will outperform like any corporate job. And so like that's largely why the larger companies have not been as successful in ordinals. And there are many days I wake up and I think OrdSwap is bloated, or I think Magic Eden is bloated, because like it's not clear to me that any of us are actually keeping up with what's going on. So if you look at the history of just the ordinals last 4 or 5 months, OrdSwap at some point had 100% market share. Then it was dominated by Ordinals Wallet, then dominated by Magic Eden, then dominated by Unisat. Now there's a company called idclub.io that's making an extremely cheap inscription service. None of us are even playing on the other chains, which other people are building around Doginals, around Litecoin. There's also a group of builders that are building around BSV. And so it's not clear to me how you run an organization that could be like at the forefront of all these things. Coinbase has unlimited resources. OpenSea has unlimited resources, both in terms of capital, in terms of labor. So does Binance. These three companies, while they've tweeted about it, talked about it on Twitter, have not created substantially meaningful products in the ordinals domain. And I don't think it's because it's a lack of interest in building it. It's just, it's happening extremely, extremely fast. So that's the reality of this new world.
Let's talk about some of the things that have happened within ordinals. Let's talk about Ordi and BRC-20 tokens. The way that I've explained Ordi to people is that it is Bitcoin inception. It is like Bitcoin within Bitcoin. a lot of people talk about Ordi as being the exponent of exponents, the exponential function within this final economy. Could you please explain this to the viewers?
Yeah, so the person who coined this term is a gentleman by the name of Army of Youth. I think he's based in Toronto, Canada. Someone who's been following this space for 10 years, a little bit of a controversial figure for some of his other views.
But brilliant. Like the dude is really
brilliant.
smart, like straight up.
Yeah,
He is.
yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah. And so yeah, I want to give credit to him for bringing this to the forefront of the awareness in terms of Bitcoin community. Stated something around, I think if I don't get it wrong, but about 20 cents, 25 cents, where he said Ordi is the final layer, final exponent. And the idea is that, like, in a world where every single person has Bitcoin on chain, 100% Bitcoin's on chain, then you are protected by the hash rate of proof of work of the Bitcoin network. So everyone's assets in terms of BTC are the safest they could ever be. If you remotely move your BTC to a centralized entity, you have taken on unnecessary risk. Like, where your BTC is already safe on BTC, yourself in your own wallet, you put it into a product, now you have a 1% chance, a 2% chance that your BTC are gone because it's not in your hands. So when this happens, you would like to engage in commerce and the economy and all your needs from within the Bitcoin economy. And so if you're going to then buy something that's on chain and trade to that, of all the things that you could trade to, the most liquid asset on the BTC chain, given it's the first fungible token, given it's the first given it's a fungible token and it's the first fungible token, then Ordi, because of the way the protocol is formed, there's no creator of Ordi that has any ability to add supply to the Ordi. It's not like someone owns a smart contract to the BRC-20 token called Ordi and can increase the supply. So given this makeup, basically, Ordi will start to exert some of the same math effects of growth that BTC did in the original world since 2009. So based on this gentleman's prediction, then if BTC one day does go to $1 million, then he thinks that Ordi could go to $70,000. And so if you rate that and you look at Ordi having already achieved a 3,000x return, if you stop BTC at 3,000x return, you would have ended up selling your BTC at $5 or $6. He's saying that open your eyes not to the realm of what is a good return in the traditional mindset, but if you do the math and understand that everyone has to come to BTC, and once they come to BTC, the most liquid, viable asset that you could possibly put your money into from a BTC perspective will be Ordi. Then he's saying that from $6 to 70,000 is like his first price target. You still have another 10,000x return in a world where BTC might only have a 10x or 50x return. This is his thesis. So far is held out kind of true. No other asset on Ordinals, on BTC, has surpassed Ordi in market cap, and nowhere close. So like the second, I think Ordi now has 93% market share among BRC-20s, and no NFT collection is worth, I think, even more than $10 million, and Ordi is worth about 150 million market cap. So that's the idea of the exponent with Ordi.
He also says that part of being the greatest exponent is due to the fact that it was is the factor of time, that Ordi has that advantage within the history of the Bitcoin native economy. Now, does that mean that some other asset could another asset bring about a greater return than Ordi within the Bitcoin on-chain economy? I have to say that possibility, that is a possibility, like, and a lot of people, one of the biggest criticisms that I've heard of Ordi is like, well, what can a BRC-20 token do? And why would I use Ordi when the most liquid token within the native Bitcoin economy is BTC itself.
Yeah, he's just saying that you're looking for a high beta play. So obviously you can own BTC itself, but Ordi will move both on the upside and the downside more than BTC because it's just a much smaller asset. So will something else from zero return more than Ordi now? Is very possible. I think it's possible. He will say it's not, but like certainly since the inception of Ordi, it's gonna be hard to beat that in terms of percentage returns, because now like basically people's eyes are on the game, and so things will not be as organic as the way Ordi played out, because you have opportunists that like want to get in early as a strategy. So I think if you lay it like that, then getting into BTC 2009 represents the greatest return. Getting into Ordi March 8th represents the second greatest return in percentage terms. You can still have the third greatest returns, the fourth greatest returns, and comparing the third greatest return coming up next to investing in BTC now or investing Ordi now, it can still surpass that, but it probably won't surpass these two assets from a perspective had you invested in those two assets from zero.
Correct. Okay,
Yeah.
so one of the notions that people keep bringing up is like, well, we don't have microtransactions as a utility for Ordi, so that is like that is a utility that we wish Ordi would have. And I want to ask you about like the Boss protocol. So and Oshi, it seems as if the native economy of BTC is positioning itself to offer DeFi and smart contracts using BRC-20 tokens. So in a sense, the fact that everything within the native Bitcoin economy leverages off each other's success, it seems as if Ordi will have utility through DeFi and smart contracts. Am I correct in this assessment?
Yeah, it's utility. People think of it like using it for something. I think of it more like liquidity. It's more like every one of these products being built, whether it's supporting lending or margin trading or whatever, it will obviously support Ordi. And so this asset is getting more of a product set built around it. It's so many companies are going to support this asset. So it's just really like another asset that you can invest and hold, rather than thinking like I will be like using this currency to like do something specific. It's just like a general, it'll be supported along with every other BRC-20, but because it's the biggest, it might just stay the biggest. This is the concept. It's like you can argue Solana is a faster blockchain than BTC. You could argue that back in the day, like Litecoin is better than BTC, but nothing surpassed BTC. And quite frankly, there's been an endless amount of innovators since March 8 when Ordi came out. So the fact that it hasn't passed, anything's passed Ordi yet, there is that concept of like a Lindy effect, right? Like the longer something stays at the top, the longer I think it will continue to stay at the top. It's kind of that kind of effect. So far, Army is correct. Yeah.
Right on. So yeah, look, my opinion on Ordi, Jack, is like, I agree. What fascinates me about Ordi is the assessment and the analysis given by Army of Youth. And so I see a mathematical brilliance in it being the exponent of exponent, unless something crazy happens in the future that unseats it from that position. But it's still a token. And in my imagination, I feel like I've seen this before. I've seen a token before. And if DeFi products come out and smart contracts with the token within the native economy of Bitcoin, well, it will be different. It's happening on chain with Bitcoin and with all of the features and capabilities and the security that the hash power of Bitcoin offers. But it's still, to me, something that really is just something I've seen before. You know what I mean? I've seen this before. I've seen tokens before. But Bitmap captures my attention in a way that nothing has captured my attention and imagination since I honestly, dude, to be completely honest, Jack, I think this is the thing that's caught my attention in all of crypto history the most, because we're talking about like going into virtual reality, augmented reality, into the metaverse, and the fact that this is going to happen whether we like it or not, and that it's something that I do not want to be in a world where it's just Oculus and Facebook, the Google metaverse. I do not want to live in that world. And I'm pretty sure people watching this right now also don't want to live in that world, in a centralized metaverse. Like, we all want to live in a decentralized, a capitalist meritocratic environment where we own our data, and it is our place, and it belongs to us. And so Bitmap blew me away. And when you told me about Bitmap, I think it was a guy that goes by J5 dropped it, and then you started thinking about it, and you told me about it. Man, it really blew me away, Jack. Like, I haven't been excited about something like this in a very long time, because it is so different, and it's because I think it really has to do with our imagination. It's like we're going to create this virtual space. So, what's up, Jack? Thank you for the alpha there.
Yeah. I just think that it is so unknown what's going to happen with Bitmap. I like to reward concepts that I've never heard of, never would have exactly been able to innovate the exact same thing. And it's like costing a little bit of, we all work for a living, whether you work at McDonald's or whatever you do. And you want to redirect some of the money that you earn towards ideas that you've never conceived of. And this qualifies as one of those concepts. And the more you think about it, again, even taking away the financials part of it, there's a world where Bitmap never appreciates in price, and it was still an extremely fun thing to get involved in. You can even think of it as a charity. It's like, I would like to contribute some of my energy towards the idea that if we're going to be forced to enter a metaverse, that it's going to be a metaverse or multiple metaverses that's built on top of a public infrastructure, uncontrollable infrastructure. It's something where you can say something ridiculous politically, and you're still going to be a landowner of this asset. Maybe that doesn't mean that your asset will be recognized by a major like closed system. They might censor you, but there represents an opportunity for someone else to build an open metaverse using your asset. And given the first few weeks of this playing out, I've been pretty happy with the number of different projects that looks like people are cooking up. And I expect that to grow. So, Ordi, if we did a show on Ordi the second day after, look, I was also an inscriber of Ordi, right? On the first day. If we did a show on the second day, we roughly can imagine Ordi a little bit as well. But the financial gains and the recognition of Ordi didn't materialize for another 2 or 3 months. I think Bitmap, what makes me really bullish on it is the fact that it's actually taken a decent amount of time to sell out. It's taken about 2-3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks since I've made it more like publicly known, like about my views on the project. That type of thing usually means that like you are consciousness wise enough of a gap like ahead of where society is that it's going to take some time to sink in. But then when people really like think about this going into next year, the year after that, as they put on these kind of like metaverse goggles and stuff, I think there's a mainstream moment for something like Bitmap, like an S curve for Bitmap itself, that is somewhere in the future that I personally don't want to fade. And if you reach that conclusion along with everyone else, then you'll be buying it in a condensed time period with everyone else. Whereas if you're willing to have some patience, and if you can see it in your mind and it's rational to you, it's conceivable that in a couple of years it'll be rational to a lot of more people as well. If you think about the price of these things, it's like this is probably the world's cheapest metaverse project anywhere in the world. Like you can go invest in India, invest in Silicon Valley, invest anywhere in the world. I don't think you'll find a metaverse project cheaper than the inscribed cost, which I put at about $800,000, $1 million for the entirety of the project. But yeah, I think it has reason to be the biggest metaverse project. So would you rather invest in Meta stock at $500 million valuation, $500 billion valuation, $1 trillion valuation, or would you rather buy Bitmap at 1 million valuation? That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense because like the metaverse, the idea of a metaverse is an idea that runs parallel with the attention economy. And it's like in real estate, we say location, location, location. So if you're going to build something in the metaverse, you're going to want to build within an environment where there's already a market, where there's already enthusiasm, where there's already people ready to receive what you are building as a developer. If in a world without Bitmap, a developer of the metaverse would just be hoping that Steam, that some gaming platform will pick their idea up, and it will be a centralized environment where there's not really a grassroots energy, where we find in Bitmap that this is something that is grassroots and really and it's, you know, the people within Bitmap are not waiting for some big gaming company to come in. Like they're actually doing things themselves. Like they're just going for it. And so it's extremely exciting. Let me ask you something. You know, Apple has been coming out and for a long time has been like, well, we don't want to get involved with Bitcoin. We don't want to get involved with Bitcoin. Do you think that Bitmap is that thing that will force Apple's hands to reconsider their stance towards Bitcoin?
I don't think so. I don't think it materially is different for Apple. I think what will likely happen is, you know, there were App Store crypto wallets since 2013. I think I remember blockchain.info had an app, different things.
Yeah.
Apple started cracking down on those crypto Bitcoin wallets 5 or 6 years after they were first put into the App Store. So I think similarly, people will be able to create Vision OS apps around Bitmap for at least the first little bit of time. If it blows up, Apple may take a similar treatment and try and censor Bitmap related applications from the App Store. But I'm not too worried about that because by then there'll be, you know, a Chinese maker of a device that's similar to Vision Pro, and they'll build around Bitmap. So just like, you know, you can have your crypto projects on Android stores, you can make web apps around it. That's what I see happening. So look, when you're looking at things this early, you can't get everything correct, and you're going to have some mistakes. So there's a world where you come back to this show 3 years later and you're like, wow, that guy was so dumb. He believed in bitmaps. And bitmaps went nowhere. That world, that possibility does exist. But it's about like risk reward. So, you know, I obviously wasn't there around at the beginning of Bitcoin, but I can imagine if you pitch someone Bitcoin in 2009, let's say you and I did a show on January 10th, 2009, 7 days after Bitcoin started having blocks. And essentially we are about, I guess, 20 days after Bitmap started being inscribed, right? So it's about like January 30th, 2009. Let's say we were to do a show at that time. The conventional thinking for you would be representing, let's say you were the hype man behind Bitcoin, which I know you were actually very early to Bitcoin. And I think you're saying now that Bitmap is the most exciting thing that you've seen since you got into Bitcoin, right? 2010.
I would say yes, by far, because it is on the on-chain layer. It's part of the native Bitcoin economy. And like you say, you bring up the Apple Vision Pro. You're 100% right. You're merging the next stage of computer to person interface with the best economic layer that that has the best economic design where we all own our data. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So if you were to replicate that kind of podcast experience from January 2009, right? End of January, what will likely happen is one person would say, look, I think this has a future to replace the dollar. I think this could be the new currency of the entire world, Bitcoin. And someone else would be like, there's no way. Do you know how there's 300,000 employees at JP Morgan? They have bank branches everywhere in the world. Like, there's no way that some magic internet money could ever like out provide in terms of services what a JP Morgan can do. And even as late as 2018, you had the CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, on stage saying this Bitcoin thing's a joke, right? So you could be perceived by society to be a nut job and wrong for a decade. But during this decade, while you were still perceived to be wrong from 2009 until 2017 at least, right? Bitcoin actually went from like a less than a penny, hundreds of a penny, to something like, $10,000, $20,000, now $30,000, right? So if someone's telling you there is no way that a open community can build a metaverse better than a Facebook, which is the equivalent of the open community can make Bitcoin more valuable than JP Morgan, I could argue that even now the JP Morgan economy, the fiat economy is still much bigger than the Bitcoin economy. But you don't profit from that view. Like if you said, okay, I prefer the JP Morgan, that's more realistic in 2009, and you went and bought JP Morgan shares, I don't know what the return of that has been. Maybe it's been 20%, maybe it's been down, maybe it's like up 100%, but it's nowhere near the returns of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin obviously since that time has returned like 1 million times over. I think maybe 30 million times over, right? And so you could be wrong 2.999999 million times. The one time you're correct makes up for the other times that you're wrong. So just like VC venture investing is about you get 1% right, 10% return the money, the other 90% could go to zero and you're still better off. You're kind of in this kind of position with Bitmap. So it's not a fair comparison of will Apple do this? Like saying Apple will shut down Bitmap and using that as a reason not to invest in Bitmap is the same as saying one day China is going to ban Bitcoin. Like right. You were right about that. Eventually China did somewhat ban Bitcoin, but they banned it at a point in time where Bitcoin had already grown like 1 million times over. So like if you look at the market cap of Bitmap, right, for Bitmap to reach the valuation of a single metaverse company, which is like Facebook, and you can look it up, but last I checked, maybe it was a few months ago, whatever it was, Facebook was, let's say, or something like Facebook is like at $1 trillion valuation, right? Apple's at close to 3. I think Facebook's maybe like half of $1 trillion, whatever. Let's just call it trillion. And Bitmap's at 1 million. There's 1 million millions in 1 trillion. So you're basically investing in Bitmap at 1 millionth the valuation of the centralized metaverse, right? So are you giving the centralized metaverse 1 million times better odds than this decentralized metaverse? And I'm not giving you a shitty chain that is on, I'm giving you the first kind of fair launch, community driven on the largest proof of work, Bitcoin, with the largest crypto network effects. I'm giving you 1 million to 1 odds. So in my opinion, you put some in here. I'm not giving financial advice, but I'm saying from a perspective of what I did. You put some in there, and if this is the one that I'm wrong, I could be wrong another 999,000 times. I'll get something right in the future. If you think of that as like degenerate gambling, I don't think of it like that. I think of it like appropriately sizing what is going on here, and that's the way I look at Bitmap. So do I care if like next week Bitmap didn't go up, went down? No, it's like you don't care like if you took profits on Bitcoin BTC at like $4, you might have already made 1,000 times, right? Like you're the pizza guy. You sold a couple of pizzas, got 10,000 Bitcoins. They went to $4 each. You take profit. I mean, that's a pretty good return. $40,000 for selling a couple of pizzas is pretty good. But if you sold at $4, you'd be like, well, what is going on? So like you want to put in an amount of your time or your money into Bitmap and then let it ride and let it see if it actually can live to become the metaverse of the future. If you're going to take profit, maybe you take profit on what you initially put in, or you make a 10x on what you initially put in. So if you put $1 in at $10, $100, you take $10 out, you already made your 10x, but you want to let the whole bag run till the entire world has heard of this idea and has decided whether they're going to be in it or not in it. At that type of mainstreamness, like the way BTC is mainstream now, is the time that you actually have held that investment to its like rightful maturity. And I think that there might be a hype cycle around this thing in about 1 or 2 years, the same way crypto had a hype cycle in 2013, 2017. But the maturation in the mainstream of what crypto is was really that 2021 cycle. And so whether you sold at the beginning of 2021, end of 2021, halfway through 2022, yes, when you zoom in, it looks like, you know, you might have sold 90% higher, 10% like lower, whatever it is. But compared to like getting rid of it in 2011, 2012, you're way, way higher. So I think there'll be a hype cycle similar to 2013, 2017 for something like metaverse land. You could argue there was already a hype cycle for decentralization and things like this. And then there's an actual like utility cycle where like people are actually living in the metaverse in some way, shape, or form, engaging in commerce on it. That will be like the second cycle. You want to at least see this through to that first and second cycle, and however long that takes, it takes. But it really might be just a matter of a couple of years, in my opinion.
So you really think this is going to be in a couple of years like that? We're going to be seeing people like on the metaverse on a constant basis. When before this meeting, you're showing me on your phone where you're traveling in a city, in a metropolis, and you're pointing, and you're like, Raph, you see all this whole skyline here, and you just see little boxes, poop, 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 poop. And you're like, all of those people are going to be in the metaverse. And you know what, Jack? I think you're right. Everyone's on the internet, right? So why wouldn't people want a more immersive experience of the same internet?
Yeah. So internet pre-Bitcoin is actually just a tool for the offline economy. So like with the benefit of hindsight, I would actually call Amazon.com an offline company, despite the fact that they don't have physical stores for the longest time. But what their purpose as a company is to give you a faster, more convenient offline experience. So instead of you going to a mall to buy something, they will ship this thing to you, but you're still receiving this good in an offline world. They're using the internet to communicate and coordinate, but ultimately eBay and Amazon was delivering something to you in the offline kind of world, okay? But when blockchain introduces ownership on the digital layer, actual ownership, then you have an on-chain economy that's existing straight up in the metaverse. So it's a bit like people say, hey, look, I prefer touching an orange or a melon to actually see in a grocery store if it's fresh, to smell the strawberry and whatever, to buy it. But ultimately, there is so much like food delivery and grocery store shopping online that market, even though your preference as a human is to engage in the physical world, the financial returns from investing in Amazon early is much higher. Another friend of mine, after I told him about Bitmap, is saying, okay, I get it, but ultimately this has to come back to the real world. Like it has to reflect back to the real world. We can't just living in the metaverse. I would agree with that too. Just like ultimately Apple also opened physical world stores. Ultimately, Amazon opened physical world stores. But if you look at the stock of Apple the day it opened physical world store compared to its stock price in 1976 or whenever it listed back in the late 70s. Or if you compare the stock price of Amazon, at the moment that they actually opened the physical stores versus what you could have been buying them in 2005, 1997, 1998, whatever it was, it is like hundreds of times higher in price. So when the metaverse is actually real, when the metaverse is actually affecting the real economy, you're going to be buying the assets of the metaverse at 10,000 times to one. Just like by the time the Hong Kong SFC has approved Bitcoin as an investment that can be sold at HSBC, at whatever, you are buying BTC from HSBC today at 30,000 per, when you could have bought BTC in 2009 at 0.0001 cents. And so like where this is going is, I don't know who said this online and like as someone very famous, but they said that like most of the returns in investment is made from when something is absolutely not possible. No way, I cannot even believe that. I do not jive with that at all. When an investment moves from that step to, you know, I'm not going to use it yet, but I can totally see that world happening. That change from an impossibility to I can see that is where the asset that you're talking about experiences a great majority of its rise. So it's a bit like AI has not, I don't believe AI has actually disrupted anyone's job, like directly. But it's the idea of AI. Oh, I can see that now. A year ago, before ChatGPT, I don't see what's going on. Just like a nerd thing. That's an abstract thing 10, 20 years away.
Yeah.
Once I see ChatGPT, it hasn't actually impacted anyone in terms of their jobs. But you can see that maybe this technology will wipe out 20, 30, 40, 50% of white-collar jobs. Once you see that, the investments on AI companies has already experienced that Gartner hype cycle where things are up 100x, 1,000x versus what they were even like a year ago. I think that's the same for metaverse. As soon as some people can imagine like that, the metaverse is where the economic fabric will be created in society, and that the metaverse economy will one day be multiples larger than the physical world offline economy. That moment is when people are going to do some crazy, silly things where they own the first tree of the metaverse for 100 grand. They own the first virtual coffee brand and some franchise stores of the metaverse of coffee for 100 grand, for $1 million.
It's happening right now, actually.
It's happening right now. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. With that, from that moment of not understanding it to that moment of seeing it in your imagination, is that what you would call that 0 to 1 moment? Is that it?
Yeah, that's the consensus moment, is that this Bitcoin has achieved that too. Like Bitcoin is not used in the real world whatsoever. There's not that much more utility. But the reason why Bitcoin went up so high is if you ask most people in the world, what do they think is the future of money? They might answer Bitcoin, despite not holding Bitcoin, not using Bitcoin. But that's kind of reached that social consensus that the future is going to be some kind of a crypto asset. And I think that 0 to 1 moment was the Apple Vision Pro. None of us have that device in our hands. We're not spending any time in the Apple Vision Pro yet because we haven't bought it. But to see a $3 trillion company spend any amount of time making this device is a check mark. Like, whoa, someone has thought about this very long, and they're willing to bet the next 5, 10 years of their company. The largest company is willing to bet on that. There's something there. And, you know, with the mixture of hardware and the blockchain, you want to think about what are the metaverse assets. I think there'll be assets that outperform Bitmap too. But if you're like, not all of us are amazing stock pickers. So owning just some land is getting you some kind of exposure to this possible outcome. So, I mean, it wouldn't be that crazy to expect if the floor price of a piece of land on Bitmap is $1,000, the entire market cap of the Bitmap like floor would be something only $800 million, right? Because you have about 1,000x 800K. $800 million barely puts you in the top 50 of coin market cap today, 60. And you would expect that economy to grow also. So if you look at 3 years from now, 5 years from now, is it that expensive? And we have proof in the pudding. Some of the lowest numbers of Bitmap, sub 100, sub 500 numbers, have already transacted in the thousands of dollars already.
This is fascinating, man. I mean, the when you talk about Bitmap, we're talking about like, well, what is the utility of Bitmap? It's like, dude, it's everything. It's like there's a funny meme out there. I think someone was trying to like, you know, rag on you and saying, well, Jack is just saying, and all these Bitmap guys are just saying this is all just your imagination. I'm like, dude, what else is the metaverse than our imagination? That is like literally what it is. It's the imagination economy as becoming a place where we can go with our imagination and we can create awesome things with technology. We can go there and experience each other's imaginations, literally. Isn't that fascinating? We're going to be able to experience each other's imaginations, man. That's so cool, dude.
And really, it's about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you're at the bottom and you're thinking, I need food to eat or I can't survive, I need shelter, then obviously, like, you're gonna fade the imagination economy. Why would I want some random imagination when I much rather prefer a bottle of water, some food, housing, right? And I know there's parts of the world that is still lacking in basic healthcare, basic services. But you have to think of the economy as more powerful than just being able to fulfill our basic needs. So if you project out, and for a large swath of the population, they already have their basic needs taken care of. If you look at the richest 1%, richest 10%, what is their monthly spending in the basic layer? It's going to be like 1% of their net worth, right? The other 99% is held in stocks, in bonds, in whatever alternative asset classes like wine and art and whatever. So if you create so much abundance where no one, like, you could be the richest person in the world, Raphael. You're not going to eat more than 6 meals a day. You just cannot eat 25 meals a day. That's not how your biology is done. So then you're going to exert your energy and your resources into more and more abstract, higher level things that are like the average person wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't spend my money trying to go to Mars. But for someone like Elon Musk, he's already done everything he needs to do. So he wants to go explore Mars. Jeff Bezos wants to explore space. So we're going to all explore this imagination economy. And so, like, there is legitimately a chance that a virtual coffee brand started from scratch will one day be worth more than Starbucks. Full stop.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Right? And they might do a fair launch where you're going to mint a recursive whatever mint, and someone's going to watch the show and then copy this idea and probably going to make a lot of money.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go for it. Go for it. And you'll build a cult brand. I mean, think about it, right? Right now, there are already dating apps. There are people who are like, I don't want dating apps because that is degenerate for society. I believe in meeting someone in real life, in class, in at work, or whatever it is, or off work at a social event. You can believe that. But unless you're right for all 8 billion people, even at 100 million users, these social networking kind of dating apps made ginormous amounts of money, right? What is happening already on that front? People are describing their interests, right? Oh, I like to go skiing. I like to play baseball on the weekend. I like to do whatever. I'm into this. And two people are basically describing their interests each other, and then they're having a conversation on a Bumble, on a Tinder, on a Hinge, on a whatever. Then they might, because there's no metaverse, they then go on a physical world date. And a lot of people are like, oh, this person didn't turn out to be what they said they were. This was such a waste of my time. I hate this, right? What's going to happen, and I'm not saying this is socially good, right? But what's going to happen is you're going to have a metaverse dating app, right? And when you want to express your interest in different realms, you're going to be able to show that, hey, I'm interested in Arabian coffee. And it'll be shown that you have one of the original cups of Arabian coffee in this metaverse thing that you collected. And that's going to show a degree of authenticity around your personality. Then you and your match might go off and play a game in this like metaverse. That'll be your date. Like you'll go on a few dates there. And you can't say that this is not going to happen because we already saw like the stripper lap dance economy move into a digital kind of OnlyFans economy. And you have people inventing AI sex dolls and all that stuff. Again, I am all for public education, moral education. I'm all for people to say, this is not going to happen. We don't want this. We don't want this. Like, this is morally horrible. But I'm purely talking about as an investment. And this is just freedom of speech. I'm not even saying I'm going to personally invest in any of that stuff. But I'm just saying that, like, you can see that the people who are going to find a new medium to create are going to find it much easier to create those virtual coffee shops, those virtual dating places, the virtual environments in the metaverse. And if they're remotely successful, we're looking at a multi-trillion dollar economy, to the point that one day, if you don't like if you're a restaurant in Miami or New York, if you're a restaurant and you do not have an Instagram account, you're dead.
Right.
You have to have a presence on Instagram so the foodies will shout you out, tag you, and then that's a way for, that's your new yellow pages, right? You used to be in the yellow page directory in the offline world. Now you have to be on Instagram so people can find you and then come to your physical world restaurant. There's a world that in the future, if your brand, if your product is not on chain as an ordinal in the metaverse, no one will even go to you in the real world. So even the people who hate the metaverse, who want to be in the real world, are going to have to use the metaverse as a user acquisition channel. And once that happens, when 10,000 different coffee brands comes into the metaverse, what's going to happen to the first coffee brand? You see what I mean?
Right.
That's where I'm trying to get you to imagine.
Dude, this is fascinating. So, in other words, what you're telling me is that children are going to have the capability to start businesses with their imagination, and they're going to be able to compete against legacy businesses, and that is beautiful. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Everything happens so fast on chain. Everything happens so fast on the internet as it is. When you see everyone like I'm telling you guys, you go on Twitter, there's people talking about ordinals all the time. It's almost like everyone that is part of this native Bitcoin, I call it the swarm. It's like a swarm of people that right now are on BTC, and it's like a giant startup. It's like a giant business of spontaneous order, like a swarm, like an organic swarm. So yeah, you were saying, Jack?
I mean, this is the ultimate form of obsolescent insurance. It's like, I want to fade the metaverse. I don't want to live in there. I'm a boomer, but I'm going to own some assets that's related to that topic so that if I'm wrong, I have exposure to the future. So this is like a hedge, because otherwise, and this is part of why like NBA players want to become owners, right? They realize that their playing days are limited, and they want to eventually become an owner so they have exposure to the growth of the basketball sport after their retirement days. So a lot of us are like working, and then we invest in stock market so that in the future, when we retire, there's like a nest egg in our savings account. But the stock market is being rugged by the crypto market. The crypto market is being rugged by the on-chain economy. So there is no, because the world changes so much, what you're taught to do at age 20 in terms of planning your life is most likely obsolete by the time you're 70, looking to cash out on that retirement savings fund. So you have to constantly re-educate yourself on what is the next frontier. And there might be frontiers beyond this, right? But I like to say that like BTC is the chain where this is all happening right now. There might also be the same happenings on the Doge chain. There might be the same happenings on the Litecoin chain and other chains like this, maybe even Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. Certainly from an Ordinals perspective, all 4 of these chains have about 10 million or more inscriptions already. You can't go wrong with any of them, really, in my opinion. But there's just, like, again, when you're looking at 10,000 to 1 returns, there's just no reason to be tribal and hate on one chain versus another, because you could literally have a bit of exposure to all of them. And in many cases, you don't even have to spend money to have exposure to all of them. You just have to bring your idea to the various different communities, and you'll have exposure. So I see the entire physical world economy in real time getting rugged right now by the digital world economy. So in what I see happening is that in the physical world, there'll be no such things as a company going bankrupt, because your company would never be delivered in the physical world unless it has already been trialed in the metaverse. So there's going to be a showroom for a car dealership in the metaverse. So there's no way you're going to have like auto inventory in your physical world that's unsold, right? You're going to have all your supply and demand matching inside the metaverse in the on-chain economy, so that in the physical world, what you're seeing is a guaranteed success. You're not going to be opening up a restaurant and then you got food left over today because, like, you know, someone didn't come to your restaurant and eat. You'll have all your inventory sold out as JPEGs, as whatever, in the metaverse. So the physical world becomes like a pure park beauty exhibition, and not this like dog eat dog risk taking. The risk will all be played out in a much more efficient economy up top.
Right on. So, Jack, there's a meme going out there on the internet that Jack Lou's from the future. So, like, what's up, man? What's next? Because did you expect Bitmap to happen? Because I this caught me off guard. I did not expect something like this to come out. Were you expecting something like this?
I didn't know what I was exactly looking for, but when I saw the Apple announcement, my mind immediately went to what is the best investment as a result of Apple. You can obviously just buy Apple shares. Just like when the iPhone came out, you could have bought Apple shares too and done pretty well. But if you understood that because of the iPhone, there would be things like Uber, Slack, Instagram, WhatsApp, and you were able to invest in that, which I wasn't able to, only like Silicon Valley firms can get into, then you would have done much, 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 much better than Apple. So because now it's been 16 years since the iPhone, and this is the Vision Pro, and crypto has been around for 15 years. So I was looking for something that was going to be a crypto-based project, but it had something to do with Apple Vision Pro. And I guess I didn't do a good job of like searching on the internet for that. But when J5, told me about Bitmap, it immediately clicked that that's what I was actually looking for. Because if you look to invest after people put on the headset, then everyone else has also reached the same conclusion as you. The key is, can you imagine what people will think about when they do put on the headset and invest in it somehow beforehand? I've seen it play out time and time again that society gives you actually quite a lot of time to understand and have an edge investment wise. BlackBerry the makers, the Research in Motion, the makers behind BlackBerry, their shares actually reached an all-time high after the iPhone had already started shipping. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Blockbuster shares reached all-time highs after Netflix already existed. Right. So so you have this time where society just, no matter what, whether they don't hear about Bitmap or they just don't get it, you have this time to like play out your investment thesis from now until people really put on the headset. And after they do, I think they might reach a similar conclusion to me. But what were you going to say about the future?
What is next? What's the next exponent?
Um,
What could you imagine being the next exponent? Would it be something that builds on top of Bitmap? Because it seems like there's so much enthusiasm going around because of Bitmap that I keep seeing people saying, okay, well, this is the path. It's almost like this, Jack. It's almost like you can't see the end of the road because it's foggy, but you can see 5 yards ahead of you, right? Through the fog. So you can just walk in that direction and the fog will clear out as you keep walking, right?
yeah, I like to say that if you take the right path and you have the right mindset, you can miss 99% of the good stuff, and the 1% will still be better than anything else you could have done if you took the wrong path in the first place. So if you're watching this show, then your mind is already somewhat synced to this direction. Now, this direction could be wrong, right? It could be completely wrong. Assuming it's right, I think there'll be many, many more opportunities. And I don't even look at it as investments. It's more like, to me, if you spend an hour of time even listening about Ordinals or Bitmap, watching this, you should give an hour of your financial resources towards this thing, even if you hate this thing, even if you think, I just watched a show, this thing sounds ridiculous. The fact that your mind signaled to you that it was engaging enough to even think about what a world of Bitmap will be or will not be, you should have a little bit of exposure. Because even if you're right 1,000 times out of 1,000, 999 times out of 1,000, that Bitmap is a joke, it's going to be something else. The reality is that that something else doesn't exist yet. And you can't exactly pinpoint when it will exist. So you want to have your capital, at least, as it's like the attention economy. Whatever you're paying attention to, you should put your financials behind that attention to the equivalent amount. You know what I mean? Like if you started using like the iPhone and you're like spending all your time on the iPhone 2007 and you spent $800 on an iPhone or $1,000 on an iPhone, put $1,000 into Apple. If you could invest in, like, if you're having all this debate about why Ethereum sucks and why like Bitcoin's better, in hindsight, we should have a little bit of Ethereum while we have that debate. So anything that you spend your time on, because assuming you are not like masochists and don't want to keep on spending time on things that don't make sense, that is actually a very good gut signal to like have some exposure. So what exactly happens next? I saw someone made a protocol called like .lambo. Have you heard of this?
No, I have not. Not
You've
yet.
never heard of .lambo. So
Not yet.
it stands for license plate assets managed on Bitcoin ordinals.
Wow.
Metaverse license plates. You know how like in Dubai, someone spent like $10 million buying like a really single lettered license plate, and someone in Hong Kong, I think, spent like $3 million buying a license plate.
Yeah.
You have some numbers or letters .lambo. As I see it right now, there's about 1,900 inscriptions on this protocol. And the idea is that on your metaverse land, you'll have a car, and then you'll have a jet or something, and you'll be able to put a license plate around that, and there's a market around that. So like cars depreciate every year, but factually, the license plates in Dubai have appreciated 20% a year for the last like decade. So this is like another asset, another angle for a metaverse.
So do you want to hear my alphas that I've been working on?
Go for it.
All right, let's play this game here. All right, so I figured how many, okay, a lot of people are talking about I'm gonna inscribe trees, like okay, mountains, okay, but what is it that you're gonna be doing? You're going to the metaverse for an experience, right? So I figured I should start inscribing experiences.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So what kind of experiences are you going to go into the metaverse for?
You let me know.
All right, bro. I'm pretty sure you're going to go watch a movie, right? There's going to be a cool movie theater, right?
Yep.
All right, there you go. I just gave you one. What else, man? You might want to go listen to some badass music, right?
Yep. Concert
Oh,
venues.
okay. I just gave you another one. All right, maybe and on and on and on and on and on. Within a city, how many within a city there's historical places, right? Like there's like the first nightclub,
Music.
for example,
Yeah.
first theater, right?
Yep.
Okay, I just gave you other
Correct.
potential exponents. So any experience, if you can say, well, this is an experience that takes place within a space. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You're about to start inscribing. I can see it in your face.
No. The thing is, with license plate and land title deeds, you can have this kind of just simple number or letter thing. With these experiences, you have to actually go create the art, go create the brand, go create something. It's not just a piece of land that you can do something on top of. This is the actual thing on top of. And so that picture is not so clear for me right now.
Okay.
But I do know that people are gonna do this. And yeah, I mean, at some point it's just like the society just moves forward, like, and we can want the world to stay the same, but there are those amongst us that just keeps on pushing the world forward, and that makes things uncomfortable if you're in like a still position.
Yeah,
um
yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that because I've
Go ahead.
realized that the more sophisticated a person is in like even in crypto, the more sophisticated the crypto person is, the harder time they have like putting on these goggles of like the on-chain. Please speak to us. Why is that? Why is it that people like the longer you said this before, the longer you take to acquiesce your mind to this reality of a native blockchain economy, the harder it is going to be for you, right? The
Yeah.
crazier it will seem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the reality is that the world's changing all the time, and it's now changing faster than it ever has before. And change is very uncomfortable because look, I just finished building this product. What do you mean it's out of date by next month? I gotta build something else. And um and change is lonely also. They say lonely at the top. That's not just like lonely at the top of wealth. That's lonely at the top of like the frontier of innovation, because clearly no one else has thought of this, right? And there are minds like Nikola Tesla. Okay. For him, figuring out electricity was a 0 to 1 moment. But I think within days of him figuring out electricity, he already realized that there's going to be mobile phones and computers, and when we connect it on the internet. He realized that because he says, now that I have a new data point to factor into my mental model, which is a post-electricity moment, what is the world that will be created with this new truth? And so he was able to extrapolate that truth and arrive at the conclusion of cell phones. But he would go on to die at the New Yorker hotel talking to pigeons, because like he didn't really have anyone in the physical world to relate to. And quite frankly, no matter how good of an entrepreneur he was, or not, or wasn't, he can't actually manifest a cell phone right then and there in the early 1900s. It wouldn't, because of Moore's law, it wouldn't really be possible for what he's imagining until 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Same with Steve Jobs, right? I'm sure one of the reasons why he was probably booted out of Apple, his own company, is because he probably lost interest in how do I sell this Lisa or Macintosh more in Southeast Asia.
Right.
Because that's like a horizontal marketing operational move. He's thinking, what's the next computer? What's the next? What's the next? The benefit of us in crypto is that the world has now caught up. What is preventing hyper-Bitcoinization from going even faster is not hardware. It is not Moore's law. We can go faster. So the only thing preventing it is imagination. Imagination is not bound by 100 years and whatever. So I think Nikola Tesla would love to be alive today. I think Steve Jobs would love to be alive today. I think you're all very lucky. We're all very lucky to be alive today. We can always focus on, yeah, for sure. We can focus on the conflicts between Ukraine and Russia. We can focus on the conflict between China and Taiwan. You can focus on the conflict between the Democrats and the Republicans. But they're really just conflicts happening on the first layer. But the faster we can grow the second and the third layers, the more we bring people into a different kind of economy in the first place, where we're not in this like who has more resources in the physical world. We're now in a more imaginative economy. And yeah, I think
yeah, that's beautiful.
I think that's gonna happen like at the speed of thought. So really, if there's something could be more crazy than this, it would be like a more scalable Bitcoin, whether it's one of these other chains where their metaverses can develop even faster. Those are possible outcomes. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said something so beautiful there, man, because it's like, and let me extrapolate on what you said. It's almost as if this world is divided between, it's all for your attention, right? Between, you can focus your attention on all the fear and worries that they put before you, conflict here, conflict there, problems between people here and there, or you can put your focus on beauty and imagination and actually help the world now. Like you said, like progress happens at the speed of thought now. So having that said, I have a question for Jack Liu. What have been the top 3 things in your life that have led you to that 0 to 1 moment? What are those top 3 things in your life that have had captured your imagination the most?
I think prior to learning about Bitcoin, which by the time I moved to Hong Kong originally, Bitcoin was already invented. I just never heard of it. So the first moment was seeking what is the freest place on earth in the physical world, and how do I get there and live there? And so you read Milton Friedman, you read Hayek and whatever, and they mention a place called Hong Kong. So for me, getting to the best place in the physical economy world from a financial freedom, economic freedom perspective was like a moment number 1. And I got there in 2010, right? Nice. Then the second moment was discovering Bitcoin sometime when I was in Silicon Valley, reading the white paper in 2013. That moment made me understand that we can go beyond the physical world freedom. There's going to be this new immutable asset called Bitcoin. Yeah. And then the third moment for me was not actually Ordinals coming out, but when BTC like had the forks to BSV, it was like, okay, this might still not be adopted, but now we no longer need to be in a conversation about can Bitcoin scale, will it scale? It already did scale as soon as that fork happened. Now it has no adoption, just like Taproot and Segwit had no adoption in terms of Ordinals. Like those things as a basis was actually created on BTC. Like BTC could have had Ordinals all this time, right? Right. But it only happened with Ordinals coming through. So I guess it would be like getting to Hong Kong, discovering Bitcoin having many versions, having a scalable version. Those would be the top 3. And then I guess number 4, I'm just going in chronological order.
Yes.
Would be the when Ordinals came out would be like the 4th biggest thing. And then the 5th biggest thing would be when the Ordi came out with fungible tokens. And the 6th biggest thing would be when Bitmap came out, where you can create like a metaverse around it. you
So
know?
what you're telling me is that the chronological order just like contracts as time goes on. So you're
Yes.
just revving up into hyper Bitcoinization. So if anything, we're gonna be expecting a lot more awe moments to experience as time goes on ever faster. Like you said, you've been saying and this is what the main thing that stands out to me from our first conversation 6 months ago was that you said things will move so fast that you like in one day you're going to just like there's so much going to happen that if you are not ready beforehand to be able to meet those opportunities, you're going to fade it and you're not going to know where to buy such and such asset, and every moment that goes by is just going to you're gonna miss an opportunity. And then you said something that was the title of our last conversation, that there will be a moment in the S curve of hyper Bitcoinization, and that part of the S curve that just goes straight up, that's going to be within 24 hours. Jack, what's up with the 24 hours? When do you think that will happen now that you're further along this path?
I think much like I still think we're right in it, and like certain little pockets are happening within 24 hours. Like if you want it, you probably had less than 24 hours to get a sub 100 number bitmap. I wasn't there.
Right.
You had less than 24 hours to inscribe Ordi.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I wasn't there.
You wasn't there, right?
No, yeah, it's happened so fast. Yes.
And I'm not there to the first recursive collection. I'm not there to the first like Litecoin collection. You're basically not going to be able to be first on every one of these things. And the more there are things, your chances of batting percentage will go lower and lower and lower. And that's good for society. You don't want the same person being first to everything. Like that's boring, right? But this goes back to your prior questions. I think I never really answered. Like, why are people stuck in the way that they think? It's because at every level of consciousness, and I think humanity's even discovering what the ultimate levels are. Like, there's levels that I probably can't even describe. Okay, but and I think obviously the final level is like love, right? It's like, we're not here to be like, oh, I got more Bitcoins than you, I got more Ordis than you. That's not the relationship we're in. We're ultimately going to spend time with each other due to love, right? Due to like, there's like desire, there's like from the heart. It's like, it's the fact that we haven't solved a lot of the other issues in our world that makes people remove love in the pursuit of wealth, in the pursuit of resources and all the other stuff, right? People should not be bombing each other, right? People should be loving each other, yeah? But there's like restrictions from everyone living like that, you know? And so when people stay stuck to a layer, it's because to be the most successful person on that layer over time, you have to become the most sophisticated person in that layer. So it's much harder to be the CEO of a bank today than it probably was to be the CEO of the first ever bank in the world like 400 years ago. Because now you have so much more responsibilities to different constituents, different governments, different employees. Like, you can't be the CEO of a hedge fund or a Blackstone or a JP Morgan without spending all of your time consumed in the legitimacy of yourself in that layer. Whereas when you escape to a new layer, a new thought, a new creativity, you could be not so well put together. You don't have to have a suit on. You don't have to, have all the things in your life. You can have this like moment of artistic brilliance, and that's enough. You know what I mean? But
yes.
But over time, that's not enough. It's like Ord swap. The product is a little bit janky, but that's enough because it was first for that first few weeks. Now, if OrdSwap doesn't improve as a product, I'd much rather prefer Magic Eden. I'd much rather prefer OKX, whatever that is, right? And so you have two choices. You either move horizontally, in which case you have to keep on increasing your sophistication, or you move vertically, in which case you have to keep on opening your mind to new ideas more and more. And so those are, and before, when the world didn't change that much, there was increasing returns of globalization and horizontalization. when the world is now going through monthly, weekly, daily change, hyper-Bitcoinization, there is not as much returns from trying to like, hey, I'm running the largest company in ordinals. I don't know what that means. Like it's more important that you're first to more and more protocols and more assets. You know what I mean? So
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Dude, I think we found the title for this talk: Hyper-Bitcoinization in Pursuit of Love, baby. Because I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Jack. And what do you foresee in the next 6 months? We're going to be talking in 6 months.
We'll talk in 6 months. Stay healthy. Everyone stay safe.
Yes. But what you know, look at what happened in these past 6 months. I never expected this. It's crazy. Okay, so what's going to happen in the next 6 months?
Massive levels of disruption. So here's how I look at it, right? I don't think the Blockbuster CEO did a poor job. I think he ran a great company. All his retail locations were operating on all cylinders, great supply chain, etc. But unfortunately, when Netflix and internet comes out, it's like, I'm sorry, but like the world has moved on from this idea of renting DVDs from the physical world store. You can have all the McKinsey research, Boston Consulting Group research about demographics, but there's a moment in time where everyone's like, sorry, I'm not into that anymore. Okay. And that's happening to crypto companies on a daily basis, where it's like you have 10 exchanges, they're each competing with each other, providing amazing customer service, amazing marketing, and whatever. But there's a moment in time where it's like, oh, sorry, I'm into DeFi now. I'm not into these centralized exchanges. And they just get wiped out simultaneously. So like DYDX has more derivatives volume as a DeFi protocol than the centralized, like most of the centralized exchanges. And so the disruption does not come from a competitor that looks like you. The disruption comes from a new way of doing things that is just, sorry, like you could be the best run version of what you do, but there is a technological abstraction that is just better than what you do. So for example, if ordinals start taking off on a more scalable chain, it doesn't matter what the prior consensus was on this prior chain. People are going to have to move because your chain cannot offer that level of scalability. So that's like another 0 to 1 moment. So like the BTC maxis got wrecked when there's ordinals, because I don't care what you think about this as financial gold, digital gold. You have to accept that Bitcoin is now an on-chain economy. It's now the new internet. And if you are going to be the new internet, then if some other version of Bitcoin has a more like efficient operating system for an internet, then the market could move to that. So I'm not making a prediction that things go from BTC to another chain. I'm not making a prediction like that right now, as of this exact moment in time. But I'm saying that you have to think about what are your adversaries. I don't think BTC has anything to fear from Facebook. I don't think Bitmap has anything to fear from other centralized metaverses. It's more about, can there be a even crazier, faster growing organism than even BTC? That is your adversary. That is the thing that you need to hedge against.
Okay, Jack, look, I think this is like the last topic here, but I have to ask you. I've been looking at this whole thing from a very human, like interrelational, like personalist perspective, which is like the technology is the vehicle, the medium that we use, but really what I'm honoring is the swarm of people that are learning to work with each other within this on-chain layer, and the swarm is around BTC right now. The technology that we're using is the medium, but like you said, the swarm can move. It can move, and look, this is a thing, man, is that there's gonna have to be movement, because the swarm right now is starting to bang on the door. I'm on Spaces today. I don't know if you were even on Spaces today. entrepreneurs on Spaces today with the enthusiasm around Bitmap were like, I need microtransactions for the application I want to create on the metaverse. And so then what the question was, they started bringing a bunch of Lightning devs like, what is a Lightning dev option here? And there's not really an option for them because it's too complex, too complicated. So then what entrepreneurs are starting to realize, it's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to hedge it like a miner, and I'm going to just use Bitcoin Cash, BSV, and BTC, all the Bitcoins in my application, and start playing with all of them, getting all the best features from all of them, and start playing within the metaverse now. I'm not going to wait another 18 months because one of the Lightning devs was like, well, we don't have that yet. It's on its way. It's like, no, dude, I don't want to wait. That's kind of like what the consensus was of these conversations. I do not have time to wait. So I'm going to just use what is in the market right now, that is SHA-256, and completely integrates with the Bitcoin design as it is now. So so that's kind of like where we're at. And the swarm is something that I think we have to look at with reverence, because it's really people learning. I think the greatest alpha is realizing that we are each other. Like, we are the greatest alpha, and the fact that we are learning to cooperate with each other in creating this native Bitcoin blockchain economy, something that we've never had before. And it's like, you're right, man. It's not just the technology, and the swarm can move. So let me ask you about that. The swarm is growing. Honestly, Jack, I think you were the first person that I know was vocal about this swarm happening. And that foresaw it happening to this degree. And you know why I know that it was you? Because you were the one that said, I see it happening. And then you said, within this amount of time. And it will be exponential within a 24-hour time frame. I'd never heard anyone say something so daring. So given how much this swarm has gone into that 0 to 1 moment of awakening to what you said, 6 months, now there's the best developers in all of crypto and the best entrepreneurs and the most enthusiastic people in the entire space are back in the biggest network on the planet with this vision now, and not just thinking about it, but working on it 24/7. What do you foresee happening once this swarm starts realizing that there are limits within BTC, that BTC must scale? I don't know how else to put it. That BTC, there has to be movement. Either the network where they're congregated around has to move, or they will have to move. So when is this going to happen? How will it happen? How do you foresee this occurring?
Yeah. So my eyes have been on this industry every day for 10 years. Okay. So we have a bit of a track record to see what happens. Now, I've been wrong, but I've been wrong more than anyone else in this crypto industry. I've also been right in some ways more than anyone else in this crypto industry. So I have both the greatest of success to learn from and the absolute greatest of failure to learn from. So I have like learned experiences. So when I say something, I say from, this is not going to be my first go around of any of these versions. As you know, we made Relay Club before we ever made OrdSwap. We have music off the chain on NFTs with text writing from the chain. So I'm in a position of moving backwards. I don't say this arrogantly. I'm moving backwards to see where people are, rather than be alone at the finish line. And I might be on the wrong finish line also, right?
Right.
Other people are in a place of hesitancy of like, I don't really want to move forward in that position because that seems scary, right? So I have like no fear, at least when it comes to like, obviously a fear of God, but like no fear over this like industry. And what I think is the predicament that BTC is in is that it cannot open the Pandora's box of a conversation around scaling. So if I was a BTC holder and I really want BTC to succeed, I think it's already succeeding. Obviously, it's number one asset in the world, $30,000. It's got lots of people building on it. Ordinals on it are the biggest, whatever. You just stick to that script. It might seem obvious that you should scale, but you do not even entertain that conversation if you're BTC. Not because I'm scared that if you scale BTC, BSV is wrecked. That is not why I'm saying do not entertain this conversation. Because we have seen that when the last time people tried to scale BTC from BTC to SegWit 2x, and it was supposed to be the New York Agreement, and it was supposed to come online November 2017. As you took this conversation more and more seriously about polling miners, getting exchange consensus to get to a SegWit 2x, what happened was before you ever scaled it, whoever was into moving BTC to 2 megabytes actually stepped away and went to Bitcoin Cash, which at the time had a ticker BCC. And to the point where the people who wanted to scale BTC moved to Bitcoin Cash, and the remaining people in BTC no longer wanted to scale BTC. So SegWit 2x was actually canceled. So you do not want to bring into the Overton window the idea that BTC should scale. Because if you even have that conversation and have a roadmap and have a meeting and have a dialogue about this, have a Twitter space, the more serious that conversation gets, the more someone's like, I'm not going to wait for that to happen or not happen in 3 months, in 2 months. There's this other asset. If I really believe in that, I'll just buy this other asset. It's a bit like Facebook telling you, I hear that Bitmap is coming. I have a plan to make a decentralized metaverse too. Just wait for me for 3 months. That is the biggest promotion to actually own Bitmap itself, because it's an acknowledgement from a higher power, a more stronger foe, that what you're doing as a David is actually what the Goliath should do. So you bring more attention to that. So you do not want to bring any attention to that. You in BTC should be like, the greatest ordinal ecosystem is exactly this 4 megabyte ecosystem. We do not want more scale. You want to keep on spreading propaganda that if you even remotely went from 4 megabyte to like 100, this chain will collapse. Here's why everything will be wrecked. You want to stick to that narrative as long as you can. You want to continue censoring the BSV community. You want to continue not to have any conversation about that. And that is your best chance for potentially continued success for another 3 years, 7 years, 50 years. I don't know, right? Just like if you're banks, you do not want to say, I like blockchain technology. Just shut up and don't even acknowledge it. Because the moment you say, hey, I like blockchain, but not Bitcoin, the smart person is like, oh, you know what? You might say that you like blockchain, not Bitcoin. I'm going to go buy some Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying? So that's where we're at. But if the cat gets out of the bag, right? And the swarm moves over, I can see a number of reasons why the economy would grow even faster than what we have seen so far. Because
for sure.
Yeah, I think an ordinal native chain that has massively higher scalability clearly can grow 1,000 times faster than what we've seen in like BTC.
100%. I mean, in BTC, we're still talking about like very elementary, like protocol level stuff that has already been figured out in these other chains. So yeah, by far, I've always told people like hold the Bitcoin index. Not financial advice, but it's what I do, and it's like I hold since the civil wars, boom, 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 boom. And because I think that's the best way to hedge yourself to any possible future,
Yeah, and if you see the builders in the narratives of BTC have now evolved to be a lot of the same narratives as the people from BSV. it just could happen like extremely fast. But again, I don't know. I don't have an exact timing on this prediction, and you should hedge yourself and whatever you want to do. But what people really don't understand, I think, is that they think there needs to be a whole bunch of capital that like moves in and like dumps this and then buys this in order to push an asset to a certain price. I think George Gilder said it very, very well, which is like the market price can change at the speed of thought, at the speed of change in consensus view. So you don't need a single dollar to be invested in a single asset for that asset to go up 100x. You just need every seller of that asset to no longer be willing to sell 100 times lower because they now believe it should be 100 times more valuable. You see what I mean?
Right on.
And the final thing I'll say, I know we have no time left, but just like FTX was a rug prior to our last interview, this is not a true rug, but what happened with Azuki's 2 days ago is a significant milestone in the awakening of the NFT investor in Ethereum, because they're seeing that their Bored Ape has gone down by a whole lot. So trusting Yuga Labs is not an investment thesis. They're seeing that like Azuki's just issued double the supply at like and diluted the PFP collection. So before we trusted these people like Sam Bankman-Fried to build out a centralized exchange, and just going with him equals make money. 6 months later, we have this concept being broken of going with some amazing NFT team and they're going to make you money. And part of this is the awakening is that no, your creativity is what going to make you money. A creative investment, a creative invention, a creative new way of doing things. Because you know this idea of like Washington's got the lowest approval ratings ever. Just I don't care about parties. I'm talking about just general trust in politicians, general trust in things. In crypto, we're experiencing this phenomenon where trust in a centralized company is declining. And that is not just a centralized exchange. It's now trust in a centralized NFT project team is declining. And the sovereign individual concept is about the idea of trusting in yourself, trusting in your own abilities. Now, what are the abilities that the market really wants? It's not manual labor type abilities. What the market wants from you is your creativity, okay? Now, in the former world of the matrix, your creativity is like your data, your work that's being siphoned by a mother entity. This is the idea of like we all live in a pod and then like our minds are being tapped into some matrix and they're profiting off of this. What the blockchain represents is the ability for you to capture almost entirely the full value of your creativity. So there's the concept of a super cycle that was introduced as the hype word of the last cycle. Like it was introduced by the Three Arrows founder, Suju, right?
Yes.
It's like Daniel Kraywitz. I don't want to put the two people together in terms of character, but like Daniel Kraywitz introduced the idea of hyperbitcoinization in 2013. What we're seeing is that these concepts are actually meeting. But why did the super cycle not work out last time? Is it really because Sam stole people's money? Is it because like Celsius stole people's money? I don't think that's the reason why the super cycle didn't work. And if you interview me at the time, I don't think I'll be very lucid in the way I would explain it. I'm giving you a perspective of what I see from past events. It's not that I could have predicted this or anything like that. But my interpretation of what happened was you're not going to get a super cycle, the real super cycle, the real hyperbitcoinization, by trying to onboard the past. I don't care if you get Michael Saylor to buy Bitcoins. I don't care if you get El Salvador to buy Bitcoins. I don't care if you get Wall Street to hold it, make ETFs. I don't care if you make easier on-ramps with credit card buying, with MoonPay. These are not the things that you're looking to onboard. So the onboarding of the past wealth is not what creates a crazy hyperbitcoinization super cycle that goes on forever. What you're trying to really onboard, and I think this is what the most successful people in Ordinals have shown, is what we're in a game of is onboarding society's creativity. You're not trying to onboard money. You're trying to onboard creativity. And if you can onboard creativity at a faster rate than any organization can compete, than any country with their whole like visa system to encourage entrepreneurs to go, like if you're just a better vehicle to onboard creativity, because not only do you not offer no taxes, you offer them a true marketplace for creation. And that creation may look nothing like the world we know today, which is why we all have to be very, very open-minded. Like you ask me, would I ever buy a fake, essentially virtual world license plate? What are you talking about? But in the context that I have to adjust for a post-Bitmap reality, then if I can believe people are going to own land in the metaverse, then why would they not own a license plate? Like, is it worth $1? Probably worth $1, right? Then we have to open our mind to like what's the possibility. So I think if you recontextualize what's happening now as the onboarding of creativity, then we can get to a infinite level of growth, such that like in 6 months, I don't even think this show will be that popular. Because it's like, why am I watching these? Like, because you might think I'm from the future, and I'm not saying like I am or not, but like being from the future is actually a very boring thing. Because that means that you came back from a fixed point in time in the future. You know exactly what the future is like. And all you can do is get people to go to that same place. A much more interesting thing than being from the future is to be able to shape the future of an unknown future. And because then you can actually have a say in how fast we get to XYZ. That's more interesting. But as you can tell, maybe 10 years ago, what I'm saying is something absurd that no one can accept. But the world is already, at minimum, nearly caught up to anything I can imagine with my one single brain, if not already surpassed. By the time the next time happens, you interview any one single human being about the whole economy, they're going to give you a very, very minor understanding of the world at large. Because it's going to be like the world just turbo, like in the S-curve, bypasses any one single person's mind of a conception of the future. I think you're going to reach that point in 6 months. I can feel it because I don't even know half of the protocols going on in Ordinals. I don't know what is really recursive inscriptions, what is curse inscriptions, what is this, what is that. Like it is almost impossible to keep track of. So if I was going to go out there on a crazier prediction, maybe not 6 months, maybe a little bit after 6 months, my data point is telling me that Elon Musk no longer cares about Twitter. My data point is telling me he cares more about a UFC fight with Zuckerberg, right? Is that like where crypto Twitter has been looking at Twitter as a source of alpha? We're very soon about to get into a different type of product that is more on chain, that you tap into that to find your alpha, because its alpha will no longer be on Twitter. And so there's going to be this rugging, like where Twitter disrupts New York Times, something else disrupts Twitter, right? Where crypto disrupts fiat, now an on-chain economy disrupts crypto. I think 6 months from now, you'll see that. If you squint at Relay Club, if you squint at ord.io and this whole idea of check the chain for new alpha, like I think that those type of products are very, very much on the way, where I can no longer find alpha on Twitter anymore.
That's badass. So is there something that is ord.io the thing that scours data being arbitraged on the internet in real time on the blockchain?
It is.
Dude, I've been missing that. Oh my God. So I've been missing that. See, you just proved the point with me. Like I'm so into this and I missed that because I've been wanting like a place where I can see the blockchain and the on-chain activity happening in real time. And you're telling me that this is what ord.io is.
Something like ord.io, yeah. But it's not great, but I can see where they're looking.
Okay. Yeah. Because I thought ord.io was just like another place to do arbitrage. That's the way I saw it.
No, it's like a Ordinals native block explorer
That
kind of
is
a thing.
badass. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
So you
it's
can
like,
see in real time. You can filter by rare sats, not rare sats. You can see in real time. Leonidas, I expect some payment for this shout out. He's the person who started Org.io.
that's
Uh,
badass.
yeah,
Wow.
it's badass.
Wow. So now the blockchain is truly a marketplace for all digital assets.
Yeah. Um,
Wow. The Block Explorer is that window of digital assets being traded on chain.
because
Wow.
already you notice if you read Twitter, you gotta follow the right people, but
Right?
then they're going to tweet about something they put on chain after they put on chain.
Right
And
on.
so by the time you read their tweet, even if you're following the right people, you're like late. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
You got to look at the chain. So Twitter is like a faster New York Times, but like it's still an off-chain thing. But
Right.
like when something on-chain goes crazy, what I would really like is to have a Twitter for BTC, a Twitter for Doge, a Twitter for BSV, a different place where I can see in real time all the creativity, all the opportunities. And like people looked at that unisat.io, they had like a BRC-20 little list of like what's being inscribed and what's percentage is inscribed. Like we're not that far away. So it's just you look for native anything. So like anything you're doing right now that's related to ordinals, but you're stuck with a Binance account. Well, then you should get upgrade from Binance account to a Unisat account. If you want to be in ordinals, but you're getting your news for ordinals from Twitter, well, how do you upgrade from Twitter to get a more native source of ordinals information? So the world is going like very, very native to the on-chain economy. And just at some point, like the wealth generation effect is so ridiculous that I think it's very like low to even think about money or think about like wealth. There's just gonna be a moment, you know what I mean? Like
Where
look at
it's
BCH.
yeah.
BCH has doubled. Some of this like it's starting to leak into other ecosystems. Do you see that?
Yeah, 100%. It's and the swarm is waking up. Like I've noticed, like I've tossed things out there without telling them the origin. You're like, yo, you think what Leonidas just did of like inscribing a what was it he just did today? He
The interview.
inscribed the interview on the blockchain. Check out canonic.xyz. Boom. And they're like, holy shit, this is possible with the Bitcoin protocol. I'm like, yep. Oh, they were doing dot lyrics or whatever that was, the music on music inscriptions. Okay, here's jamify.xyz and just walk away. They'll just don't even tell them. And right away their eyes just light up like boom, like what? Like, yeah, man. So let's see where it goes. Let's see where it
Yeah,
goes.
I believe that by 6 months from now, one of these ordinal chains will far surpass 1 billion inscriptions.
This is wild, man.
1 billion inscriptions. So there's like a competing network effect, right? Where BTC has a dominance in the network effect is in the off-chain economy support. So the exchanges off-chain, the fiat on-ramps off-chain, the newspapers that talk about BTC, the off-chain, the Twitter that talks about BTC. This is the off-chain support.
Right on.
On-chain is limited to however many like ordinals per day, right? Like you can't actually fit all 800,000 Bitmap inscriptions in one single day of blocks. Because I think that the chain can only handle like 600,000, 700,000 transactions per day. So even if everyone wanted to get a bitmap, it wasn't possible to fit everyone's bitmap in one single day, right? So where the other chains have an advantage, but they have a disadvantage in the sense that the fiat world does not push that. It's not liquid in the fiat world. But if there is just an absolute abundance of creativity, the other chains could fit 1 billion creative ideas per day if you wanted to. It's just there needs to be some level of like smart way of organizing that. We've talked about proof of work before about that. But I think I had a role in the development of the protocols for ordinals on the other chains. Now, I'm not a developer. I'm talking about a social kind of role, where it was important to me that ordinals on BSV, for example, were traded on an order lock, not on PSBT, but on order lock, where no marketplace holds on to the signature of their users, not allowing other marketplaces to share the same offer. With
so this is
lock,
an alpha. Explain order lock. There you go. Please explain it.
Yeah. So PSBT is partially signed Bitcoin transactions where you hand your signature to the platform you're selling on. So if you're using OrSwap, you hand your signature to us. We list it on our platform. That order will not be shown on Ordinal's wallet or Magic Eden, vice versa. Order lock is you don't give your signature to a platform. You literally do a transaction with the Bitcoin network itself, and you place your ordinal into a locking script, which we call ordinal lock or order lock. You have locked your inscription inside of an order on the chain, which now says if anyone comes to the Bitcoin chain and provides your output address with the demanded amount of Satoshis, they can unlock the inscription from the chain into a wallet of their choosing. What that means is that every single marketplace is no longer a marketplace. They are an interface to the Bitcoin marketplace. They're still free to charge a fee, but they do not hold exclusivity to your order. That is what we have put in place through my conversations with different builders to say, I don't know when this is going to be required and when this will become very important in the future. Maybe it never becomes important, but I think you guys should all use order lock, which is something like one of my teammates invented 3 years ago to handle ordinals. Because all ordinals is a different type of token protocol. But the order lock is a Bitcoin script that is token protocol agnostic. You could have run tokens in order lock. You could have one-shot ordinal tokens in order lock. It doesn't really matter. But that was one differentiator where BSV had a choice to also use PSBT in their marketplaces or to have a shared order book for the whole world. And it has now become clear that the shared order book model is what's happening on BSV. So on BSV, you have unlimited blockchain size, okay? So there's a world where this is another alpha, right? You could build a inscriber that not only doesn't take service fees, you can actually pay the 1 Satoshi for anyone inscribing for them. So you can go from no Satoshis, no Bitcoins, no credit card even, just creativity. You got no Bitcoins. You're off-boarded completely. To not only are you onboarded to owning Bitcoins, but you're onboarded to owning your creation. So you're obviously in your mind creating something much more valuable than 1 Satoshi. But it's like you and I as Satoshi whales, because we have, let's say, 1 million Satoshis, right? Which today is only worth 3 cents, 4 cents. Or sorry, 30 cents. 1 million Satoshis is only worth like 30, 40 cents on the BSV network. If you and I both decided to contribute 1 million Satoshis, what we're not doing is we're not giving 1 Satoshi each to some random human being. What we're giving them is 1 Satoshi worth for them to inscribe their creativity without any onboarding. And now they have the value of what sits on top of that Satoshi. So if you create that type of product and then that item trades on chain in an open marketplace, you have the ingredients for an economy that in theory, in practice, can grow faster than any economy we have ever seen before crypto, with BTC, anything like that.
Is order lock possible within BTC?
No, because you can't fit the order lock into the script.
The script size is too small. So yeah. What size would the block have to be within BTC in order for that to be possible? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
But the moment you, like I said earlier in the show, if you acknowledge that this is a good roadmap for BTC, before you're able to actually scale it, you're just going to push people into BSV. So I think if I'm on the side of BTC, I just don't even acknowledge this.
Right.
Like, and if you're on the side of BSV, you have to I mean, for the audience here that's from BSV, they've been working on enterprise adoption, boomer things like credit card onboarding, fiat on ramps. Forget all that. You need to become a creativity on ramp. The world's creativity. That's your best chance. So on one side, you have a social consensus from the fiat world. On the other side, you're basically onboarding the most misfits. You're onboarding the most misfit idea from the misfits. It's a completely uncontained abundance of ideas. And yeah, like I don't know what that world will look like, but like I think in general, it's a 0 to 1 moment for humanity. Like I think the ledger was a 0 to 1 moment for like being able to like store value permanently or something, store data permanently. But this is a 0 to 1 moment for like unleashing absolute ridiculous levels of creativity, to the point where 1 month, like the S curve is 1 day, right? But 1 month post that unleash, I don't care what chain is on. 1 month post that unleash, no one in the world cares anymore about Kim Kardashian. No one cares about presidents of the world. No one cares about like any thought leader like you had held on a pedestal. The economy looks so different on the other side. It's like you personally, you care more about Domo than you care about Jamie Dimon, correct?
100%. Yes,
You care
100%.
more about you probably rather do a podcast with me than you would rather do a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Yes, 100% for sure.
100%.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
So
Fuck
that's
yeah.
the kind of like flippening, is that you don't take the same characters and bring them into this new world. This new world will have its own cast of characters, and they will gain an influence massively. Just like before the internet, Kim Kardashian is not an influencer, right?
Right.
Before the internet, Joe Rogan is not a top host on Fox News or CNN or something like that. He's a product of the podcast era. Kim Kardashian is a podcast of the online viral video, her sex tape, of that kind of reality TV, like a new era of self-created content. You know what I mean? So just like Mr. Beast is not a product of the former television networks, it's someone coming from YouTube. You're going to see that level of influence of creation and brand building and product building on the on-chain layer. And I think in 6 months, you ask me what's going to happen in 6 months, it's like I'll most likely be a historian by that point. I will not be able to keep up with the level of creation. So like I predicted 6 months earlier that we were going to enter hyperbitcoinization in 6 months. Legitimately, 6 months from now, we could be in a post-hyperbitcoinization era, where the show is a recap of what happened with hyperbitcoinization.
Damn.
You believe
You're
that?
right. No, look, man, it's not belief. Like, we're not in belief mode anymore. I'm living it. It's experiential. I'm living it. Actually, I see it all the time. I've been telling my team, like, dude, this is it. You got to pay attention. I've explained to them that they have to like change the way they see this to the best of my ability. You have to change the way you understand this. Like that. This is a new economy that moves faster than crypto as we know it. So, I agree. I mean, to the point that now I'm just with the Crypto Vigilante newsletter, I'm just in the state of flow with them now. And they're at the same level as us right now. Like they're no longer in the crypto mindset. People in the Crypto Vigilante are at this level. There's maybe people that still haven't gotten there yet, but I can tell you that they're there now, and a lot of them are like, damn, this moves so fast. Like same thing you said, man, I can't keep up. And I'm like, relax, take a breath, you'll get used to it, but it's like we're in the state of flow now. And if you're watching this from the Crypto Vigilante, know that we are in that state of flow. Also know that that state of flow is something that we're going to nourish even more, for sure. Because like Jack, this is and I've shown you pictures and videos of like what I'm doing in my physical space with people around me. I literally have inscription parties every night now, right? Like every night I have like a bunch of dudes just like, what's the next alpha? Where's your imagination tonight? And they're just sitting in their computers. Let's go. And just all night long, like just listening to music and just shooting the shit and tossing ideas back and forth. Like that's, and I'm not going to dox any of my guys, but like, that's me in my physical realm now. It's like, they're no longer passive observance of the crypto economy, because the whole crypto economy that revolved around the exchanges, the off-chain economy, is one where you're just a passive investor, right? You're like a speculator, and you, because no one's actually built using these technologies till now, and now everyone's swarming around BTC ordinals, and now we're actually creating, right? So it's like, it's something where it's beautiful, because now you move from being just a speculator to being an actual creator. And I'm going to be nourishing that even more with my team in my physical space, even more, dude, because I know that we're ahead.
If you go back to a 2019 interview I had, which is like, no one's going to have a full-time job because the full-time job is limiting your potential. Like, if you're not able to look at the chain as your job and you're looking at something else, you're not going to be able to capture. Like, I'm telling you, as someone who does look at the chain every day, and I can't keep up. So imagine if I had a desk job. Like, you know how people want a white collar job because they perceive it to be better than a blue collar job? There's
Right.
now an on-chain collar job that is just, better than a white collar job also.
All
Right?
day.
You
Yes.
you see what I'm saying? And at some point, it's like everyone in mass will like leave, like metaphorically leave the structures that they're in. Now they might still be at their day job, got like one chat window open for their work on Slack, but they got like another window looking at what's going on chain, right? And that'll be like a hybrid solution. But I already hear from people, right, that are working jobs that listen to me on Spaces, looking at the chain. This is like everything that we do or I do, whatever. You're seeing a little hint, a little test trial for something that almost everyone in the world will be doing. That's what. So it's not just early adopter to get like some Ordi or Bitmap. There's like some behavioral early adopterness. There's a reason why, like when you talked about the layer 1, 2, 3 while you're going for a walk with your dog, it wasn't just a message of what you're saying that resonated. It was like, holy crap, this guy's literally walking around in a fucking forest talking to me about the world. That brings a level of shock to someone who's living in a city, someone who's like working at an office building. And there's like the contrast between the life that they're experiencing and the life that you're living is like a shock factor that makes people look deeper.
Oh yeah, I'm in the on-chain all the time, Jack. 100%, dude. Like 100% of my time, I'm in the on-chain world now. Like I'm so entertained by it. It is so much fun that I can't keep myself from being part of it. It's also the most profitable. And the Emperor of Bitcoin, Daniel Krawitz, once said something that stuck with me: profit seeking is Bitcoin's motor. That shit stuck with me, man. Profit seeking is Bitcoin's motor. And then to bring around circle with like Army of Youth, like this kid is like, this dude is when it comes to like understanding exponential functions, I've never heard anybody explain them the way he did, because the exponential functions of the on-chain economy are just not much more than, it's not just the it's not just a mathematical formula applied to a technology, and it's not just a mathematical construct that you are adhering to because it's math. No, the exponential function of the on-chain economy is one that takes into account everything that is the constitutive makeup of what we are as human beings and how we behave and how we relate to each other. Knowing that the construct of the blockchain, of the Bitcoin blockchain itself, with UTXO and proof of work, allows us to be as more interconnected and in cooperation with each other in ways that we can't be in any other design. And that's what's fucking genius, man. That Satoshi like foresaw what I call this symphony of aligned incentives. Like he saw like this thing is just incredible, dude. That even the notion of privacy, because a lot of people at the Crypto Vigilante understand that like privacy is important and all that, but even the fact that he said pseudo-anonymity is the way I'm going with shows that he foresaw the necessity of a truth ledger, whereas so many people during the Bitcoin Civil War said, oh, well, you know what? We need to turn Bitcoin into a privacy coin. Like they completely faded the idea of a truth ledger, an honesty machine, a book that can't be burned. And the fact that now there's this added component of like, dude, this is not just that, but it's also a on-chain economy that is
like, okay, let's say hypothetically, this is going to happen on BSV. Are you even at all thinking about building a product to compete with something like IME or Handcash? You're not, right? You're like, that's like a total crazy waste of your time, like for your skill set.
I mean, I'm trying to get your audio, Jack. It's just because now I hope Zoom is catching your audio, so I'm here. Yeah. So no, would I waste my time competing with an already existing company? No, dude, I'll just subscribe.
Correct.
Yeah. Why would I waste time creating something that I know someone can do better?
Right.
I'll
And
just subscribe.
if you look at the inscription fees, the service fees, it was like $1, and then we went 50 cents, and then ID Club has now introduced 10 cents. If we are going to compete there, we're going to make it completely free. And so like the margin compression in these businesses is like crazy to think about, right? Like OrdSwap, right? There's no reason why we wouldn't go to 0% fees for trading, 0% fees for inscribing, because at this point it's like a hobby to me. You know what I mean? It's like you grab the early inscription, then you make your products go down to zero to punish the products that want to not take on risk and not inscribe and just make service fees all day. Even if I don't do that, the market will start to slowly do that. So the amount of time that you have as a builder to make fees is going to condense like super sharp. Just like now there's fee competition between crypto exchanges, the amount of fee competition between ordinals exchanges is just at the beginning of happening. And so like the best way to monetize your creativity is to inscribe. It's almost like, signing a document to be a co-founder of a company, except now it costs you $1 to sign to be a co-founder of any of these companies of your choosing. Then they're all available to you. There's no like accredited investor clause that means you have to be over $1 million net worth to invest in a seed round startup. You're free to look at anything on chain and inscribe your way into being a co-founder of a Bitcoin Frog, a co-founder of Ordi, a co-founder of Bitmap. And that is a level playing field that like is insane. So builders are now second-class citizens in this new reality because you have the option to become an owner anytime yourself.
Yeah, dude, that's wild, man. Pardon, what was your question?
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's so wild that as quote unquote far ahead I am in ahead of everyone else all listening to this, it's still something that I have to wrap my mind around still, right? Because again, guys, as you can see in real time here, what's happening with Jack, um, the insights that we gain on a daily basis dealing with the on-chain economy are insights that will never cease to happen. It's almost like in theology, you learn that the word mystery does not pertain to something that will never be known to you, but rather mystery really means that it is something so great and so profound that there will always be something new to know about it. And that's how crazy Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is that. Bitcoin is that incredible, that there's always going to be something more to learn about it, because this is only possible via the construct that Satoshi gave us,
Yeah, and I think if you're the Federal Reserve, you're in a very tough position. So I don't look at any of these people as like crooks or hate them or any of these people. I'm just like, it's like why would you hate on Blockbuster? You know what I mean? It's just like they're doing their job. This is the best thing that humanity could come up with at the time. I don't think you have to keep on looking at conspiracies of oh, this person put this person on the Titanic and the ship sank. Like there's no need to think like that. But if you're the Federal Reserve, right, what you're dealing with is the idea that you're not competing with the euro and the Japanese yen and the RMB. You're competing for reserve currency status with Bitcoin, with ordinals, with whatever else. And so as you lose that reserve currency status from the dollar to now a cryptocurrency that you really cannot compete with, you have a systemic exit from the dollar to crypto, right? Or on-chain economy. Then what happens is you have to keep interest rate up. Otherwise, people will lose even confidence in the dollar even faster. But if you keep the interest rates up, your asset prices can't really go much higher because you have like super high interest rates. Like people can't afford that for the jobs that they're working on.
Right.
And already you saw like in the last cycle when they had the stimulus checks, people knew subconsciously that they can't rely on their wages to out earn inflation. So they would then chuck their money into speculative assets like meme stocks and meme coins and
Right.
try and make an outsized return. At some point with the on-chain economy, you can't just chuck money into investments. You now have to potentially take a risk and be like, I can't provide for my family with the job I'm working at. I need to take a risk and rather be unemployed and actually look at the chain and participate my creativity into the on-chain economy to try and make a living that way. There is that intersection point. So if you're the Federal Reserve, you're trying to keep people gainfully employed and keep inflation down, but you have two forces that's driving inflation up very, very high because people are leaving the dollar to an on-chain economy. And the other force is people are leaving their jobs for an on-chain economy. So you're going to have high unemployment, high inflation. So then you have to have high interest rates. And then the physical world assets are being rugged because now people can just be in the metaverse from anywhere in the world. Like they don't have to live in a megatropolis and stuff like that. So just massive, massive change happening in the physical world where almost everything we know it in that bottom layer will very soon be perceived as blockbuster. And no one will come and save you. You have to save yourself. You have to make your own decision for how you're going to react to this. And it's almost like inaction is the worst action. Take some action. You might be wrong. But there's like a 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 moment happening to the physical world economy.
Yeah, right on. And I don't have time for Blockbuster or the Federal Reserve. I don't even pay attention to what they do anymore. I'm so busy on chain.
Right. They can have 18% rates, 4% rates. It doesn't matter to you.
It doesn't matter. I don't pay attention. They don't affect me one way or another.
Right.
And more people are thinking like you and I, which is wild. Like there's a giant swarm now of everybody in crypto now thinking like us more and more every day. Jack,
it's been great having me on. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, it's been real. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your time, and thank you for we went a lot longer than I was expecting. And yeah, I mean it's just you guys get to see how like this is what happens all day, all the time. like all day, all the time now. Like this is what we're doing in crypto, you know? We're all moving into this new economy, the native Bitcoin blockchain economy. So you guys are all welcome to be part of this and be pioneers with us in this endeavor. We need your help and we need your creativity. Jack, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rafael.
All right,
See you next
guys.
time.
Peace, love, anarchy. Take care. Bye.